Somebody told you that a bar of soap will seal a leaking radiator. Shave it in, run the engine warm, and the leak closes up for pennies. I have heard that in 3 different states from 3 different men, and every one of them believed it. The man who told you was half right. There's a real bar of soap fix. It is older than either of us, and it has sealed a hole in a tank on the side of a road more times than anyone ever wrote down. But it was never the radiator. Somewhere along the line, somebody moved that trick to the wrong part of the car, and it is now the most expensive piece of free advice in America. Here is what soap actually does in a cooling system. It foams. Foam does not carry heat, so the gauge climbs while the coolant still looks full. Then the suds go hunting for the narrowest passage in the whole car, which is your heater core, buried behind the dash. Clearing that is a $1,200 job because the dash has to come out to reach it. You spent $1 to avoid a $40 repair and walked out owing 4 figures. I spent 30 years in a 3-bay shop. There was a bar of plain white soap on the sink and another in the toolbox, and it did about 25 jobs a week. Not one of them was pouring it into a radiator. By the end of this, you will know all 25. You will know the 2 places it must never go. And you will know how to find that radiator leak yourself in about 6 minutes, which is the real reason nobody in the trade wants you holding a bar of soap. Number 17 is why a tire shop seats a bead in 4 seconds while you have been fighting one for an hour. Number 10 is the mistake this whole video is named after, and I will show you exactly what it costs. And number 1 is free, takes 4 minutes, and it is the reason a man in that shop never once paid another man to tell him where his car was wet. These 25 tricks were never about a bar of soap. They were about a man who would not replace a part until he had watched it leak with his own eyes. Soap does not fix cars. Soap tells you the truth, and the truth is the only thing a repair can be built on. Let us count down the 25 bar of soap fixes the trade would rather you never learned. Number 25. Marking a cut on bare metal. Pencil vanishes on steel, and a paint pen bleeds. You drag the corner of a dry bar along a straight edge, and it lays a white line you can see under a work light, on rust, on grease, on anything. It wipes off wet and leaves nothing behind to spoil a weld or a coat of primer. A fabricator in 1965 kept a worn bar in his apron for exactly this. The chalk was never the tool. The line he could actually see was. Number 24. Soap on a file and a hacksaw blade. Cut aluminum or brass with a clean file, and the teeth pack solid with soft metal in a minute, and from then on, the file only scratches. You rub dry soap across the teeth first. The chips lift out instead of welding in. A shopman in 1966 chalked every file before it touched soft metal. The file did not go dull on him. It went dull on the man who did not spend 4 seconds first. Number 23. Soap on screw threads. A dry bar rubbed over the threads of a sheet metal screw or a wood screw cuts the driving torque hard. The screw goes in straight, the head does not strip out, and the wood does not split at the end grain. A trim man in 1967 dragged every screw across the bar without thinking about it. Wax and grease both attract dirt and stay forever. Soap does the job and then washes away. Number 22. Soap under the fingernails before you start. You scrape a dry bar under each nail until it packs solid. Then the grease has nowhere to sit for the next 3 days. At the sink it rinses out in one pass, and your hands look like a man who works instead of a man who never washes. A garage man in 1968 did this before he lifted a hood. It was not vanity. It was 30 seconds that saved him a week of scrubbing. Number 21. Holding a screw where your hand cannot reach. A dab of soap pressed into the socket or on the tip of the driver holds the fastener while you feed it down behind a bracket. It grips exactly as long as you need it and then rinses off, and unlike grease, it will not contaminate the surface you are about to seal. A mechanic in 1967 set fasteners overhead this way all day. It was not glue. It was one hand doing the work of 2. Number 20. A stuck zipper. Seat covers, tonneau covers, boat canvas, the coveralls on the hook. You rub the dry bar along both sides of the teeth and work the pull slowly. It runs again. A man in 1968 kept a sliver in his glove box for the cover on the back of his truck. Petroleum on a zipper collects grit and eats the fabric around it. Dry soap does not, because it leaves nothing behind for the dirt to hold on to. Number 19. Rubber and felt that binds. Window run channels, sliding rear glass, hinges on a jump seat, anything that drags on rubber or felt. You rub the bar dry along the channel and work it a dozen times. The bind goes away, and you have put nothing on the rubber that will swell it or rot it. A station man in 1968 did the channels on every truck he serviced. It was not a worn motor. It was a channel gone dry and grabbing. Number 18. Making the solution the right way. This is the one that unlocks the next 9. You shave a bar into hot water until it looks like weak milk and pour it into a pump bottle. Not dish detergent, because a lot of them carry salt and degreasers you do not want on bare aluminum or a wheel. Plain soap and water. Thin enough to spray, thick enough to hold a bubble for 5 seconds. That bubble is the whole diagnostic. Everything from here down is you learning to read it. Here is something nobody is counting. The men who ran those bays, who could find a leak with a bottle and a light while the customer was still describing it, are nearly all gone. The youngest of them are past 80. They did not put this in a book. They put it in their hands, over 30 years of leaning on fenders in the cold. When they go, the bar of soap stays on the shelf at the grocery store. $1, exactly where it always was, and the knowing goes into the ground. The chain ran bench to apprentice for 50 years, and then the benches closed. If this is worth something to you, take 1 second right now and hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. That is the only reason a video like this ever reaches the next man who needs it. Number 17. Seating a tire bead. A dry bead grabs the rim and fights you, and the harder you push, the more it grabs. You wipe the soap solution around both beads and the rim flange first, and the rubber slides and pops home on the first try. Never use grease or oil, because petroleum degrades the bead over the years. A tire man in 1968 kept a bucket and a brush at his feet. It was not muscle that seated the tire, it was the slick that let the rubber move. Number 16. Finding the slow leak. The tire that is 8 pounds down every Monday and holds fine in a shop's water tank. You air it up, spray the whole tread and both sidewalls, and stand there for a full minute. A nail leak makes a little dome of foam that grows while you watch. A driver in 1968 found his own nail in 3 minutes. The tank finds a fast leak. Soap and patience find the slow one that is actually stranding you. Number 15. The 2 leaks everyone misses. When the tread comes up dry, spray the valve stem and then the seam where the tire meets the rim, all the way around, both sides. A cracked rubber valve stem is a $4 part. A bead leak from corrosion under the tire is the most common slow leak on an aluminum wheel, and it needs the tire broken down and the flange cleaned. A shopman in 1968 checked both before he ever pulled a wheel. It was almost never the tire. Number 14. Feeding a grommet through a firewall. Dry rubber folds, tears, and nicks the wire inside it, and you do not find out until the harness shorts a year later. You wet the grommet and the lip of the hole with the solution, and it slides through whole. It dries and leaves nothing to attract dirt or soften the rubber. A mechanic in 1967 ran a wire through a firewall this way without a mark on it. Force tore the grommet. The slick let it pass. Number 13. Installing rubber bushings and weather strip. Rubber will not slide into a bore dry, and men bruise their knuckles trying. Soapy water lets it seat, then evaporates, and lets the rubber grip the way it was designed to. 2 rules. Never petroleum on rubber, because it swells and softens it. And if the bushing is polyurethane, use the grease that came in the box, because poly wants a lubricant that stays. A shopman in 1968 knew which was which. The rubber was not too big, it was too dry. Number 12. Finding the leaks in your own airlines. An air compressor that kicks on in an empty shop is burning money every hour of the year. You spray every coupler, T, and fitting with the system up to pressure and watch for foam. One bad quick connect will run a compressor all night. A shopman in 1968 walked his lines twice a year with a bottle. It was not a tired compressor. It was 6 fittings whispering air into an empty building. Number 11. Never near brake or clutch friction. This is the first place it must never go. Soap on a pad, a shoe, a rotor face, or a clutch disc soaks in and does not come back out. A contaminated pad grabs, then fades, then pulls the car sideways under hard braking. Same with any solvent, any grease, any oil. A garage man in 1968 kept a separate rag and a separate habit for brakes and taught it before he taught the job. Every lubricant on earth has a boundary. This one ends in a wreck. Number 10. Never in the cooling system. This is the mistake this video is named after. Soap does not seal aluminum, plastic, or solder. It foams, and foam does not transfer heat, so the engine runs hot while the reservoir reads full. Then it plugs the heater core, which is a dash-out job. And it contaminates the system, so the proper repair afterward starts with a full flush. If you have a real seep and need to get somewhere, a proper cooling system sealer is $10 and formulated for it. Their radiators were brass and solder. Yours is not. There is a reason no one hands you a bottle and a bar of soap. Walk into a shop with a wet radiator, and the first line on the ticket is the pressure test, $80 to $180 before a single part is touched. That test is a hand pump on the filler neck and a man with a flashlight. You can borrow that exact pump free from the loaner tool counter at any chain parts store, and the soap is $1. Then look at the parts wall. Leak detection kits, dye kits, electronic sniffers, foaming this, tracer that, $20 to $200 a piece, and half of them are looking for the same bubble. Nobody makes a payroll telling you that a bubble is a bubble. The craft was not lost. It was made unprofitable, and then it was allowed to die. Do me one favor before we get to the top 9. Hit like, subscribe, and turn that bell on so the next one finds you. That is the entire price of this. Number 9. Finding the radiator leak in 6 minutes. Here's the honest version of the trick this video is named after. Cold engine. You fit the borrowed pressure tester to the filler neck, pump it to the number printed on your cap and no higher, then spray the solution over the radiator seams, the plastic tank crimp, every hose end, the water pump weep hole, and the thermostat housing. Then you watch. The leak grows a white bubble and tells you its own name. A shopman in 1968 charged a customer nothing for this. Guessing buys the wrong part. Watching buys the right one. Number 8. Finding an exhaust leak. A tick that fades as the engine warms is almost always a leak at a gasket, not a lifter, and the sound travels so you cannot trust your ear. Cold engine, cold pipe. You start it, brush the solution over the manifold flange, the collector, and every clamp, and watch for foam pushing out. A mechanic in 1968 found a cracked manifold this way in a minute. Never do it hot. The pipe will burn you before it tells you anything. Number 7. Finding an air conditioning leak. With the system holding pressure, you spray around the service ports, the line fittings, the condenser inlet, and the compressor shaft seal. A leak big enough to empty a system in a month will foam right there in front of you. A station man in 1968 checked the fittings before he condemned anything. A very slow leak needs dye and a lamp to catch, but the fitting leak is the common one, and it is free to find. Number 6. Finding a boost leak. If you have a turbo and it feels soft, the usual cause is a coupler that lets go under pressure and seals up again at idle, so nothing shows on a scan. You cap the intake, put low pressure into the piping, and spray every clamp, coupler, and intercooler end tank. The leak foams. A shopman in 1968 did the same thing with vacuum lines on carbureted cars. The engine was not tired. It was breathing out a hole nobody had looked for. Number 5. The pinhole in a steel tank. This is the real trick that got moved to the radiator. A bar of soap is not touched by gasoline, so pressed hard into a pinhole in a steel tank, it swells and holds, and it has gotten a lot of men off the shoulder and home. 3 things matter. It works on old steel tanks, not the plastic ones on most cars now. It is a get-you-home measure and never a repair. And you do it with the engine off and away from any spark. It bought him 40 miles. It never bought him a fix. Number 4. Confirming before replacing. A wet engine bay has 20 candidates and gravity carries the evidence downhill away from the source. So you clean it, drive it a few days, then pressurize and spray, and you do not buy a single part until you have watched the leak breathe. A mechanic in 1968 refused to quote a leak he had not seen bubble. Guessing sells a man a water pump when he needed a $9 hose clamp. Watching costs an afternoon and gets it right the first time. Number 3. Knowing where it always leaks. You do not spray everywhere. You spray where pressure always escapes. Every hose clamp, the crimp seam where the plastic tank meets the aluminum core, the water pump weep hole, the thermostat housing, and the radiator cap and its neck. That is the map, and it covers most of whatever goes wrong in a cooling system. A shopman in 1968 could put his hand on the spot in a minute because he had learned it once. Leaks are not random. They start at 5 places on every car built. Number 2. The seasonal pass with the bottle. Twice a year, cold engine, cap pressure only. You spray those 5 places and walk the ground where the car sat overnight. It takes 10 minutes. It is not a repair. It is a standing appointment with the machine. A garage man in 1968 taught his customers this and told them those minutes were worth more than anything his own hands could do afterward. The shop finds the leak after the gauge climbs. He found it while it was still a bubble. Number 1. Looking for it yourself before you let anybody name it. That is all. 4 minutes, a $1 bar, a bottle of warm water, and the belief that you can find your own leak. Because every failure in this video announced itself first as one wet spot the size of a thumbnail, and the only reason it became a bill is that nobody looked while it was small. Your grandfather did this without calling it anything. He called it having a look. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the look that makes the other 24 worth knowing. If this was worth your time, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that bell right now. It costs you nothing, and it is the whole reason I get to keep making these. None of this needed a certification, a scan tool, or a subscription to anything. It needed a $1 bar, warm water, a light, and a man who believed a leak would show itself to anyone patient enough to watch. That was the default setting in every bay in America, not confidence handed down from a classroom, confidence built from having found enough leaks to know they all bubble the same way. We did not lose the soap. It is on the shelf at the grocery store, $1, exactly where it always was. We lost the hands that knew what to do with it, and the old man who handed you a bottle and said, "Do not tell me what you think is wrong. Spray it and show me." He is gone now, and most of what he knew went with him. But not all of it, because some of it is in this video, written down at last. So tell me down in the comments what you are driving, how many miles are on it, and whether anybody has ever charged you for a pressure test you could have done in your own driveway. I read every one of these. And this weekend, do not pour anything into that radiator. Borrow the pump, shave the bar, and make the leak show you where it lives. Next time I will show you the old cooling system service that saved more engines than any rebuild ever did, done with 2 buckets and a hose. The craft is not dead. It is $1 and a willing pair of eyes away.